Hello, everyone. It's me, Jenna Ryan, with Self Love You. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the topic of emotional wounds, how to heal your emotional wounds. So, a lot of the problems that people have with self love, with loving yourself, whether you realize it or not, is due to childhood wounding, wounds to your core self, wounds to who you truly are. And a lot of people, most people, just about everybody, are walking around with just gaping wounds that they are unable to treat in and of themselves. They're emotional wounds that they're unable to reach, unable to treat, unable to recognize, unable to understand. But there are a couple of different pathways to figure out what your emotional wounds are, which is the first step to healing them. You've got to know what wounds are there before you can do anything about any kind of healing. So what I'm going to talk to you about first is just understanding what goes on. Let's just start with the basics. When anything comes into your being, any message comes into your being that you receive that is not true, you get wounded. Well, the truth is that you are love, you are love. So anything that comes to you as a message that teaches you anything other than that you are loving, lovable, and loved, anything that teaches you are anything but love and lovely is going to create a wound. Now, as a part of growing up, as a part of childhood, as a part of the generations, what they pass down in child rearing, the children are treated badly. And a lot of times, we have these sayings called children are to be seen and not heard. And children are shut down. And they are, oftentimes, not all the time, some children are healthy, but just in dysfunctional families, which is a vast majority, you have the child is shut down and not allowed to feel their true feelings. And they are invalidated. And they are many times, like in my case, abused as children. And this causes a wound in the child. Okay, but whenever you're wounded as a child, you are not going to sit there. You have no resources whatsoever to heal yourself. So what's going to happen is a child is busy. A child has a lot of development to do. A child has a lot of work to do and doesn't have time to heal wounds. A child is all about getting the child's own needs met in order to develop and thrive. That's just how children are. When we're children, we're naturally self-centered. Our psyche is set up so that we do whatever we have to. We adapt in whatever way we can to our environment in order to survive. And so what happens is whenever a child is wounded, the child is not going to sit there and say, ouch, because the parent will likely shame the child for their own pain very often. If they're being invalidated, then they'll likely shame the child for pain and shame the child for any feelings that the child may have. So the child learns very quickly not to feel and to provide for the needs of the parent. Now, this causes emotional wounds, but the child doesn't have time to stop and fix them. And so in order to survive, the child needs to keep that bond alive at all costs. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that the child keeps the bond going. And there's all kinds of mechanisms that come into play to keep that bond going. But I'm not going to talk about all of that part right now, but I just want you to understand that a child will keep the bond going even if it's wounded. And the child will deny. Well, first of all, the wounded part of you, if it's chronic wounding or if it's a traumatic wounding experience, that part of you as a child will split off. Our minds, our psyche is created to evolve to keep on going and survive, no matter what happens. So in order to survive, you have to split the wounded part of you off from the other part of you. And then you have to develop a false self in order to please the parents, which are not pleased with your true self. So this creates this huge emotional gaping wound. And many of us, like in my case where I suffered child abuse, physical abuse, emotional abandonment, neglect, these different things, invalidation, they create physical, emotional abuse. these things created multiple wounds. And so there's many parts of myself that I had to hide and say, no, I don't have time for that right now. I've got to be happy to make these parents happy so that they will nurture me, because I need every drop of love that I can get. I don't have time to worry about these wounds. And I didn't do this consciously. This is a subconscious process. Okay? But I want to just show you this wound here. I actually burned myself with a curling iron. Don't laugh at me. It's not funny. Okay? And I burned myself here about a couple months ago. So don't laugh at that either. This is a scar. This is a wound. Okay? This scar is healed, but it still shows, right? This is a wound that is gaping, and I've been putting aloe vera on it, and I've been bandaging it at night. And it was a pretty bad burn, okay? This is what totally reminds me of an emotional wound. What happens as a child is you deny what happened, and you forget what happened, and you idolize the parent, and then you go forward into life taking the blame. The child blames his or herself for whatever happens to it, and this causes a wound. But whenever a child blames himself or has what we call ego defenses, it's a process of covering the wound. Kind of like whenever I go to sleep or when I go to work out, I've been putting a bandage over my burn. And the reason I put a bandage over my burn is so that nothing will get in it, and so it won't hit up against something and hurt. Well, what happens is children have natural defense, ego defense mechanisms to keep them going, keep them developing the best they can, albeit crooked, along with these wounds. And so what happens is these wounds get covered up with lies, denial, idolization of the parents that are actually abusing the child. All different kinds of defense mechanisms cover up that wound so that the child as an adult, when it grows into adulthood, doesn't even realize that they are wounded inside, okay? And so this can cause all kinds of problems, because even though you have that bandage on that wound, if you hit up against something hard enough, it's going to hurt and you're going to feel it. Or if you accidentally brush up against something when you're doing yoga and you've got a Band-Aid on, it's going to pop off. And then that wound is going to be exposed. Well, that's what happens in adulthood whenever things happen to us. Now, if you have this wound in your heart, it's actually a blessing in disguise, because it's calling you, that pain of the wound deep inside is calling you to your true healing, to your true self, which is underneath. Because what happens is you cover the wound with lies saying, it's my fault, not their fault. It's my fault. And these lies begin to soak into your belief system, and you have these core beliefs that say that you're worthless, you're no good, that your feelings don't matter, that you don't matter. And when this happens, it creates schemas. And these schemas can be, there's 12 different schemas, and these schemas are like life scripts that you follow for the rest of your life according to whatever that wound is saying to you. So another thing that happens whenever you're wounded inside like that is your whole psyche, everything is trying to tell you that the wound is there. So you will continually repeat patterns in relationships that continually cause the wound to be reopened. And you will go after people that are going to abandon you or betray you. You will be attracted to narcissistic personalities. You will, to return to the betrayal source. You will do things that will cause that pain to come back, that wound, a reminder of the wound, because the wound is telling you what you're worth. That wound, those messages you received in childhood, was that you're not good enough, you're not worth listening to. But all of that, you took it and you believed it and you made the parents okay. But the problem is you still have the wound, and the wound is a lie. And so in order to heal the wound, in order to go from this to just a scar to where, all that does is kind of bug me a little whenever you see it. It's kind of embarrassing. But in order to go from a gaping wound and to re-injuring yourself over and over again emotionally, you have to get beyond the bandage, beyond the defense mechanisms that are hiding that wound, okay? So that means you have to kind of like just pull in a bandage off a wound, you've got to pull the bandages off, pull the lies off, pull the denial off, pull the repression off, pull all the things that you built, the scaffolding you built around this wound in order to make everyone else okay, in order to take the blame and see yourself in a false, untrue light. If you don't do that, you're going to continue having relationships that are unhealthy and dysfunctional. And, you may figure all about what a narcissist is, but at the end of the day, if you don't get your wounding fixed, if you don't get out and scrub that wound, clean that wound, and get the infection out and learn the truth, that's the scrub, is the truth. And really allow yourself to feel your feelings and go through the grieving process. If you don't do that, then you're going to have problems for the rest of your life. And some people go to their grave with these problems. Many do. So what you have to do is, and also what happens is, this wound, you may be numb. One of the defense mechanisms is numbing to the pain. It's like a numb, and you can't feel anything. Well, if you can't feel the pain, then you really can't feel joy in your life. Also, it can cause psychosomatic symptoms, such as heart attacks, heart disease, backaches, pain, all kinds of physical maladies can occur because you're covered in that wound and you won't face the wound. Now, facing the wound requires that you go towards the pain, that you face the pain. For me personally, I actually have come to a place where I seek pain out. If I'm going through something, if I get stuck somewhere in my healing journey and I'm feeling sad or feeling something or feeling not right, not feeling all good, then I know that that means that there's some wounding that I can reach today, because it becomes available to you a little at a time. It doesn't just overnight the whole wound show. The way we heal, just like my hand is going to heal on its own as long as I take care of the wound. All you have to do is take care of the wound, and your mind and psyche will begin healing itself through the healing spiral, through the cycle. So all you have to do is just be willing to take care of the wound, and it will end up healing on its own through the application of truth. And little by little, if you've got to keep working at it, you've got to keep it clean, you've got to make sure you're protecting yourself and all kinds of wonderful things, reparenting yourself and doing things that are good for you, then the wound will heal on its own. And then you will experience the integration of yourself, because those split off parts of you, you can integrate everything all together, and then you can operate as a whole person rather than a split person who's got all these, and I'm not talking about DID or multiple personality disorder. I'm just talking about the average person. And it can also include DID and multiple personality disorder. But it's all of us. Many of us have these split off parts of ourselves, this shadow. Jung talks about the shadow self that people project onto others. That's what I'm talking about. You can take those projections and integrate them and see yourself as you truly are, and love yourself and get connected with your higher self and begin to get connected with true peace, with the space inside, because this wound takes a lot of space. It takes a lot of energy to keep this wound covered up. Keeping this wound covered up takes so much out of you. You don't have time to do anything else. And also the problems that it causes are humongous, because you get in these horrible relationships and then you have these horrible things happen to you, and then you feel like crap because of whatever disease it gives you. Why not just go directly to the source? Now, you need to, if you want to heal your wounding, your emotional wounding, I recommend that you get a therapist and, maybe start out reading the book, Healing the Shame That Binds You, with a therapist, and just start working on, healing your shame, because that's really what the shame that is inside is, the perpetual wounding. It continues to wound. So you're wounding yourself every single day, just as your parents did, but you're doing it subconsciously. You may not even know it. And you may not even know that your parents did anything wrong, and they may not have meant to do it, but it's just what happens whenever the way they've been raised. They weren't taught to properly raise a child. They weren't raised properly, so they couldn't do it for you. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that you're wounded and you've got to fix it, and you've got to do whatever it takes to heal those wounds. You can't walk around on the planet another day with gaping wounds. You've got to get healing, and there is healing. And the feeling of being healed is amazing. And I wish all of you the best of luck on your healing journey. Don't just learn about narcissists. Don't just learn about psychopaths. Don't just learn about all these other people out there. Begin to look inside of yourself and see what it is inside of you that is attracting or attracted to these types of people, and why you're not getting the love and the relationships that you're really wanting, is starting with yourself. Why you're not feeling that self-love within. You need to know that you are worthy and that you are valuable, and that whatever happened to you is not your fault. And you've got to know that. Not just know it in your head. You've got to know it all the way down to the depths of your heart. You've got to know that you know that you know. And when you know it, you will know it. There will be no question. And it's like the biggest, most wonderful feeling I have ever experienced, to have those aha moments. And I've had several along my healing journey. Those aha moments where you're like, wow, it wasn't me. It's not my fault. Oh my gosh. And then a little bit of my wound heals. And a little bit more and a little bit more. And so then you get to the very end, and it feels so amazing. And it's like all of the things you couldn't do before, you can finally do. Okay, that's enough for this video today. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave comments, please share, and join our group. Appreciate you so much. Talk to you soon. This is Jenna Ryan.